My fiance lives about 90 miles from my hometown. As a result, I end up driving there every week during the summer to visit for a few days. My fiance lives in the country. Her father and most of her neighbors owns 5 acres of land, half of which is wooded. Anyway, it's enough land to prevent any neighbors from seeing what's happening on their property. Normally that is great, but sometimes privacy isn't all that great. My fiance and I had gone to bed. My room is a small room that her mother uses for crafts, and it is the closest room that faces the woods. I was woken up at around 1 or 2 in the morning that night because I heard noises coming from outside. No big deal at first. Her family owns a sheep, a goat, and some chickens. At first, I thought it was some animal, and being groggy, I rolled over and started falling asleep again. Then I heard the noise again, and I realized that this noise was unlike what I normally hear. It sounded like the wood to the exterior of the house was being scraped by something. This disconcerted me immediately and instantly brought me to a stone-cold clarity. I lay in bed and listened to the sounds outside. I would hear the scraping sound for a few seconds at a time, and then silence. Sounds then started coming from inside the house. My blood boiled cold. I heard footsteps coming up the stairs, walking the hallway, and stopping right at my door. The feeling was nauseating. I could feel my throat tightening, restricting my breath, and then the door opened. It was my future father-in-law. He asked if I had heard the sounds outside. I told him yes. He told me to put on my shoes and meet him in the kitchen downstairs. As he sank down the stairwell, I threw on my chacos and went to the kitchen. I saw Jim, my fiance's father, putting on his tennis shoes. Then I took a look at the kitchen table and knew something was wrong. Jim was a sensible man, a former Marine, and a jack of all trades. He didn't do something unless he thought it was necessary or beneficial. So when I saw 2 machetes on the table, I knew shit was getting real. He told me we were going outside to take a look around, and handed me one of the machetes. The girls, my fiance, her mother, and sister were awake at this time as well, but stayed inside and locked the door after Jim and I stepped out onto the porch. I looked into the night. It was calm and dark, and the occasional breeze made the night seem nice, despite the circumstances. The moon offered just enough light for us to navigate the yard. Jim and I stepped off the front porch walking east, where most of their property was located, and also happened to be in the direction the noises had been coming from. We intended to walk to the goat pen and check on the animals, and then check the perimeter of the house. However, we never made it to the goat pen. About halfway, I'd say about 300 feet, we stumbled upon a blanket. On top of the blanket were 4 wine glasses and an assortment of knives, a saw, and some hooks. This freaked me out enough as it was. Then Jim told me that these knives and tools were traditionally used by butchers. We bent down and just kind of stared at these tools until we were startled when we heard a banging on the window behind us. We turned around and saw my fiance banging on the window. Nothing was said. We booked it to the back porch and rushed the door, which, thankfully, was still locked. We banged on the door and asked, more like yelled, for the girls to unlock the door. No one answered. My mind raced of horrible thoughts that sicken me even to this day. Jim and I were both assuming the worst, and we were yelling for someone to let us in. I was about to break in via the window when my fiancée unlocked the door and let us in. I asked her in a stern tone why she was banging on the window. She told me that she had been standing at the kitchen window watching her father and I when she saw something or someone in the woods. Apparently, the figure was very close to where Jim and I had been standing. She was banging on the window to alert us because in our trance we had not noticed the figure approaching us. Upon hearing this, Jim told my fiancé to call the police while he walked over to the kitchen window. He was staring out the window for a bit when I stepped up beside him to take a look as well. I peered into the forest. At first, I saw nothing. Then, in the distance, I saw two figures moving behind the trees. Jim must have seen them too because he rushed off to the back of the house. While he was gone, I saw two more interlopers, obviously people at this point. Jim returned to the kitchen carrying two shotguns and a box of shells. He handed me a shotgun and some shells and told me to stay inside with the girls. Jim absconded from the house and started to walk along the east perimeter of the property, heading towards the woods. Eventually, we lost sight of him, so we went back to the kitchen and watched the forest. It was so maddening just watching the forest, looking out of that small window over the kitchen sink. I don't know if my mind was playing tricks on me or if I really did see figures in the forest. Mostly, I saw rickety old trees in the night swaying in the wind. It had been about 5 minutes since Jim had left when I saw the first flash in the forest. Then I saw two more in quick succession, and then a fourth muzzle flash a few seconds later. The light and sound of the shotgun pierced the night and made the girls scream. And quite honestly, I don't blame them. It was quite possible that their father could have been attacked by these people. I didn't have time to comfort them because I saw a figure emerging from the forest. It was Jim, jogging back to the house. I let Jim inside. He told me that he had snuck up on the four interlopers and opened fire. While he didn't kill any of them, he certainly ran them off the property. About 10 minutes after Jim got back in the house, the police arrived. The nearest station apparently is a good distance away. We told them about the sounds, the butcher's tools, and the wine glasses, and the people in the woods. Jim told how he had snuck up on them and drove them off his property. Once the police took our stories, they had the forensics team come to collect the evidence. Jim must have shot someone because they found blood in the woods, although no bodies were found. And we all finally found out what the scratching noise was. The interlopers had carved a 3-foot by 3-foot pentagram into the side of the house. 17 days passed before the group was caught. My fiancée called me early one Wednesday morning. She said that the group from that night had been caught. Apparently, this group was into the occult or something similar. They had broken into an elderly couple's house and brutally murdered the couple. Then, they used a new set of butcher's tools to dismember the bodies and used the wine glasses to collect and drink fresh blood. The police caught them in the act thanks to two stoners who had seen the group break into the elderly couple's house. The police questioned them about being at my fiancé's place. They confessed that they had been there and planned to do similar things to her family. They stopped because they saw me, and being as they were now outnumbered, decided not to go through with it. The police asked why then they had stayed for so long and carved the pentagram into the house. One of the men, I was told, started laughing at this question and supposedly stated that they, the arrested occultists, were the least we needed to fear. I don't know what that means. What I do know is that the police came back a few days later and recommended that Jim cover up the carving and beef up security around the house. Now, when I look into the woods, I no longer see privacy. I see the cover of darkness.